Well, welcome everybody. It's February 3rd. This is our first Recovery Live show in the month of February. My name is Tom Williams. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And again, welcome to Recovery Live. We want to welcome everybody from the West Coast where it's 9 a.m. In the Central Time Zone, it's 11. Here on the East Coast where I am, it's 12 noon. And for our guests over in the UK, it's 5 p.m. They're just finishing up work or just getting home. I am coming to you remotely today from Winter Park, Florida, where I'm looking outside. It is pouring rain, but I think I'd rather be here than up in the Northeast today, where I understand it's in the 20s and it's going to be down in the single digits tonight. So we're happy to be in Florida today. And what a wonderful phone call I got the day before I came down here, actually 2 days before. My buddy Dale Barker, who's on our show often, calls me and says, guess who's playing in Orlando on February 3rd? Samantha Fish. And Dale did not know I was going to be here. So one thing led to another, and Dale Barker and I are going to watch Samantha Fish tonight. So stay tuned to Facebook posts on my page of Samantha Fish. I'm very excited about it. Lisa's rolling her eyes behind the scenes right now about it because she's heard enough about Samantha Fish, I think, over the years. Maybe Sue has too. Anyway, some great things going on, guys, here at Came to Believe Recovery. We have our commuter retreat coming up in California in a couple of weeks, 17th through the 19th. We have a big crowd already signed up. We have people from City Team Shelter and one other shelter coming. We have a bunch of volunteers coming. We're going to be taking it. There's something like, I think we're going to be up at 70 or 80 people, and we have a team going out to help them with that. A couple weeks later, guys, and St. Patrick's Day, we're going to be helping with an organization called Sober St. Patrick's Day in New York City. And we're actually going to be marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade, promoting, responsible drinking and being there as advocates for anyone and support group for anyone that wants to find out more about addiction and how to quit drinking in New York City. It's a big deal. We're going to march in the parade. Lisa and I and Casera, we're all going to be marching in the parade with some others that are going to come up. So those are things coming, guys. We're going to be out in Nevada City in the beginning of May with our retreat for California. So that's another great thing coming. So stay tuned, guys. Keep an eye on the website so you can see all the great happenings as we bring the life-saving message of the founders as translated through Steve and Sue Foreman and others, BJ and Jack Rapp and Dale and Carol Morfitt and some others. We present the program as close to the way they were doing it as we can. Resulting in freedom for people and living in the go and developing their new character from their old character and some skills in being able to deal with life better and being better at displaying empathy. And that was a good walk into that. We're going to be talking about empathy today, and it's a very interesting subject, being able to have people empathize with us and have us be able to empathize with others. And so my guest today, from Winter Park, Florida, actually in the next room next to me, is Sue Foreman. I'd like to bring Sue on. Hi, Sue.
Hello, hello, hello. Good to
If I
be
yell
here.
loud enough, she can hear me through the doors.
Yes, but I didn't realize it was raining until you said so. It's at 72 degrees. I thought it was a perfect day. I was going to go out and get the newspaper.
Right? 72 degrees, Lisa. That's what it is. She's
Mm.
shaking her head. Anyway, for all of you and our guests, Lisa is behind the scenes today, taking care of all of our technical aspects, and we've already got all our links up for our retreats in the UK and Ireland, as well as in the United States. Hello from New Jersey. That's good. So today, what we're going to be talking about is empathy. Now, before we get going, so I looked up, and guys, we've had a big conversation pretty much before the show went on, as we usually do. what is empathy? You know, what's the definition of empathy? And I found two just in my phone. And one says the term empathy is used to describe a wide range of experiences. Emotion researchers, imagine that, generally define empathy as the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling. My next definition is a definition that defines between empathy and sympathy, and this says empathy is shown in how much compassion and understanding we can give another, right? Sympathy is more of a feeling of pity for another. So empathy is our ability to understand how someone else feels, while sympathy is our relief in not having the same problems. I like that. So there's a difference, and it can be a subtle difference. And we were even talking about that before we came on the show, in what certain responses, whether are they empathetic responses, are they sympathetic responses, and how do we all react? And it's going to be a great conversation. But before we go into our conversation, and Sue and I are going to go over 11 empathy blockers, and they're so insightful in how we act, because we all said we do all of these. We act in them, and we've had them all done to us. And we're going to talk about how to maybe have some better responses. Lisa found a great video that illustrates empathy. So we're going to have, it's about 3 minutes long, or not, right? It doesn't show it. So we're going to have Lisa go ahead and show that video, and then we're going to get into our discussion.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know, and it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. It's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. You do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See, you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That's hard.
Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just
Don't.
Try to keep things my way.
It's not about the nail.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't that great, guys? Where how many times do we do that? And it's so obvious how we can fix the problem. It's even obvious that that is the actual fix to the problem, right? But how can we suspend it long enough to just say, well, yeah, that doesn't sound great. That's all she wanted to hear, right? With such a difference. Wow.
She could pull that thing out by herself if you just could get rid of that block.
Right. So easier said than done. That's a great example of it. And thanks, Lisa, for finding that. She came right up with that really quickly, which is not surprising for Sue and I that she would find that. So as a background of what we want to talk about today, we're going to go over a sheet with 11 empathy blockers. And Lisa's going to show that to you real quick. And it's on our website. There's a link on our website. So if you want this sheet, you can go on our website and download it. So you have them so that we're not just keeping them secret, so that only Sue and I know what the empathy blockers are.
There are 11, like 11 blockers on a football team.
They block things.
They block things. But what was that? You said that there's the empathy and sympathy. You imagine the feeling was the second part. What was the first one? You can imagine how someone else feels, but what was the first one?
The first one, there was two of them.
Mhm.
This one said empathy is shown in how much compassion and understanding we can give to another.
Opposed to
That
pity.
one?
Hmm.
Right. This one is the ability to sense other people's emotions, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or doing.
Sense emotions or
Right.
feelings.
Right.
Okay. See, so what we're doing now is, and I think in the beginning of a lot of meetings, you'll pick a word like, let's
Mhm.
do gratitude. I'm really grateful today, or let's do um, sympathy, or let's do service, or they pick a word and go around and talk about it. And empathy is one of the words that comes around, and and to me, it feels after our 40 minutes or hour of talking about this before the
Mm.
show, I'm thinking that it's very much like analyzing anything. If it's the golf game and you're talking about club head speed and you're talking about posture and what kind of shoes you have on and all of that. But until you actually can do it, you really don't understand what it is. And whether it's or I was going to show you my red wagon. Here's my red wagon. Like, there's this axiom that goes, you can't really understand the directions until you have on Christmas Eve assembled the red wagon. So we do a lot of explaining about what it is, but I think what we want to do today is give you some keys if to learn how to drive, or some clubs to learn how to play golf, or a tennis racket, or the canoe, or the red wagon, or something, so that you have something to try and to really be able to find this tiny little part of not necessarily discussing the difference between sympathy and empathy, but just something that you can practice, like practice these things in all our affairs. Just practice and see what it tells us. So
It's
I'm
awesome.
kind of
So,
excited about it.
yeah, and it's absolutely an unselfish. I mean, in order to display empathy, you really have to get out of yourself. You have to be engaged in the other person's feelings, which for
Mhm.
addicts and alcoholics and many people in brokenness, we just aren't. It's not comfortable. It's so
Mhm.
easy to go into our world. But let's go
Mhm.
through it real quick, and then we're going to go back and pick on a few of them and see if we can fix them, and see if you guys can help us in the audience fix better
Yeah.
responses to these. So Stu and I are going to go back and forth. What we're going to do is talk about it's a situation, and then what's a statement and what the block of empathy is. And some of you may not even think that these are blocks, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. So we're going to do 11 real quick. I'll start, and then Sue will do the next one, then I'll do the next one. So the first one is called fix it, right? And so the statement would be something like, I'm worried about having enough money to pay the bills. And the blocking reply is, I'll loan you the money.
Or I'll pull that nail out of your forehead.
All right.
Because he was going to fix it right away. Number one. Second one is one-upping. Look at my scar from the cycling accident. And the response might be, oh, that's nothing. You should see the one on my knee.
Right. Number 3 is storytelling. So somebody might say, I got caught in traffic for 2 hours with no air conditioning, which is the story that everyone hears from me when I'm coming out of New York City. And the block is, that reminds me of a time when I did.
And that storytelling really is the foundation of our AA program. And so none of these things are bad. It's all the timing.
Right.
It is very much like somebody calling asparagus a weed if it's growing in the wrong place. It's really good where it's in the right place.
Right.
But storytelling in this case, when you want to show that you have a feeling that is not sympathetic but empathetic, then that's a big one for us. Consoling is the fourth one. So I feel so sad that my son is in a rehab center. Oh, no, it's all right. It's all right. It's not your fault. You're a good parent. You did your best. It's okay. Just another thing that we really want people to feel better.
right? Number 6 is sympathize. Look at this. Is I just got the lab results back and it's bad news. Oh, you poor thing.
Hmm. And the 6th is advise. So now we're going to go back and pick up better sentences, right? 'Cause this is
We're going to go back and
this
pick
is-
up better sentences.
This one's one of my favorites. It's scary for me to get up and speak in front of people. Oh, and this wonderful unempathetic is, have you tried Toastmasters? Oh, well.
Well, how does that help, right? What if they say yes? Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you said
Yeah,
yourself.
I have tried that already, right?
You really are stupid.
Interrogate. I've been trying to lose weight and just feel frustrated. When did you first start having this problem?
And how much do you weigh?
Right.
And how
it's-
much do you want to lose?
there's a bunch of judgment there, right? You've defined it as a problem, and they didn't define it as a problem. They defined it as a frustration.
Mm,
Right? It's a subtle difference. We might want to talk about that one because that's common.
mhm.
They're all in the fix it category to me. They all tend to be fix it answers. But what's number 8, Sue?
Different ways to do it. Shut down. I lost my job. Well, cheer up. Let's go out. Don't think about it. We're not talking about it now. Well, let's not talk about it now. No.
And we'll go back to that too, because that's a common. People think they just need to deflect the pain and give you something else to do.
Mhm.
And again, like we've said, on the surface, some of this aren't necessarily bad responses, just maybe not the best responses, and certainly not empathetic. Because sympathy is not a bad thing to have, right?
No, it's
It's
a
empathy.
first step towards empathy.
Right. Empathy is a better thing. Okay. Explain.
Mm.
I'm really upset that you're always running late. This is me. I'm not late. I'm always upset that people are running late. Right. Whose problem is it anyway? Right.
Mhm.
And the blocking answer is the reason I'm late is because. That doesn't help me. I know there's a reason you're late, but right. So we'll come back to that one. 10, Sue.
To correct. Oh, I'm really hurt about what you said to my mother.
Mhm.
And the response would be, well, that's not what I said. You have it wrong. No, let me explain what really happened. So, get over the hurt. It's all about me now, so I'll look good.
Right. I mean, if we had said, well, what is it that you thought I said? And I get that that would be hurtful. And claim it a minute and then go, they're much, I don't know, anyway. And the last one, number 11, is educate. So my boyfriend left for college in another state. This is a great opportunity for you to learn. And that's not helpful, or not nearly as helpful as some other things.
That might be really my favorite.
Right. So if you guys have any favorites out in the audience and you have one of these has kind of sparked your interest, or you've had a lot of experience with either not being able to do it very well or having people not be able to do it very well with you, put your comments in our comment section. We'd love to talk about those. I know that Sue and I already have picked a couple that we think are ones we want to talk about. And we did have another special guest in our back room. I think we lost him on the feed, but when he comes back, we'll bring him on. So let's go back, Sue, and talk about a couple of these, and let's see if we can find some better answers, more empathetic answers to these things. All right, there he is. There's our second guest today. We're going to bring on Mr. Foreman to help us talk about empathy. How are you doing today, Steve?
God, I'm enjoying a croissant here if I can ever find my camera.
Mhm.
It's just yummy. Raining. Of course, you know that.
Mhm.
I'm ready to learn something.
Ready to learn something?
Makes you hungry, doesn't it?
Yes, it's like he's visiting the gorillas. If you pretend you're eating, it makes them feel safe.
So Steve, listen to this. But I want to ask you a question, right? Before we get going at this, and you're honest, so you'll be honest. I know. So Stu and I were talking about being empathetic, right, before the show, and even we had Lisa talking about it. And what we realized is we're not very good at it, or that it does certainly takes intention when we do things to truly be empathetic and not sympathetic. So if you were to give yourself a score, Steve,
Mm.
on A to F being empathetic in your life, what would you give yourself?
Uh, uh, um, B minus.
B minus. So,
Mm.
and what would you give yourself, Sue?
Okay, can we have an effort in school? We used to have the score, and then they'd give you a score for participation in effort. Do we get
Well,
a grade for that? I have to go give myself a grade.
I have to give you a grade for effort, like how hard you're trying to do it.
Yeah, I think I'd give myself at least an A minus on effort. But the more I learn about it, the lower my grade goes, because I don't recognize it. If I don't recognize it, and if I just go by how I feel, then my feelings of oh my goodness, you got the lab results back and it's bad news. I'm all over identifying with that, because that happened to me. So I get an A+ on being able to identify how that person might feel, because I think I had the same feeling. I'm going to give myself an A+ on identifying on certain things that I've experienced.
I know, but then when I say to you, this is a good thing. When I say to you,
Mm.
I'm going to Samantha Fish tonight and I'm so excited, you have no experience with that. So you're not like, oh my, I can tell how excited you are. This is such a wonderful thing. You just kind of, oh, well. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I would say to you, I'm not feeling it.
You're not, because I have no experience with Samantha Fish, but I'm watching you, and
Right.
I don't know what you call that when it's not something that you sympathize with, but it is something that I would say, well, he really is excited about that, and I'm excited that he's got an opportunity that just drops out of the sky to do something in
Mhm.
Orlando when he didn't even know he was going to be there. And the last time he saw her, she was in New York. And that it's really a great story, but it doesn't hit my emotions of empathy, does it? It's
Yeah,
just
no,
a story.
work on it a little, Sue. Come on. A little more of this. It's the same thing I get from Lisa. She hardly even says anything.
Yeah.
Once she sees her it'll be a different story one of these
Maybe
days.
so.
So let me
you
tell you,
still want my grade?
yeah, sure. What's your grade?
I think I'm going to give myself an A-.
On doing it.
Oh, I'm doing it. If I'm measuring against my ambition, I'd give myself a C-.
Okay.
If I'm going to do it in comparing myself on the curve with the other people that I know and live with and work with, I would give myself an A.
All right.
Yeah.
So
On a good day, depending on how rested I am and how intentional I plan to be.
And I've been worked a lot on because of the experience I had with like my family and my mother. So my mother would say to me, if I come home and said, I've got Samantha Fish tickets tonight. That's a problem, that's a subject this big, right? And there's this part of it that might be negative, right? She would start there with it and be negative and never acknowledge the exciting part of it. So
she'd worry about the traffic, or the cost?
Yeah, the traffic, the cost, and what aren't you doing, right? But then my mother was equally, if you didn't go to the concert, you deserve a break. Why didn't you take yourself a break, right? You could never win, right? If you take a day off, can you afford to take the day off? If you don't, you work too much. You couldn't win. But what it's done for me is it affected me so much in my life that I really do try. And I'm like you, so I think when I try, I get an A+. When I try and I think about it and I say, I'm going to go into this proactively, and whatever they say, I'm not going to lay my story on top of it.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And I don't do it all the time at all, but I try to. And when I can, not lay my story on top of it, I actually feel better about everything. And I think whoever it is I'm talking to,
Mm.
you can tell that they do too. They feel
Mm.
listened to. So let's pick a couple of these that we
Oh,
like.
should we ask for people to write in what they think a good answer is?
Yeah, we can ask him, and then we'll get Steve too. We'll get him on. Well, let's get all on this thing, and let's see what we think better answers would be. So here's
One upping.
yeah. Let's do the one upping one. All right. Listen to this, Steve. So here's the one upping. The statement is, look at my scar from the cycling accident. Right. And the blocking statement is, there's nothing, you should see the one I have. What would have been a better response to look at my scar from the cycling accident?
Oh, that's really, really bad looking.
It's a better response.
Wow. Sorry to see that. Glad it didn't happen to me.
That's a sympathy.
That's
You're
empathy.
making us hungry with that croissant.
That was a cookie.
Oh.
That's a cookie.
Starting to
Where
feel
would you
better.
go with that, Sue?
Well, I would start right where Steve did. Boy, that really looks painful. Tell me about that. How that happened.
Steve, this is one for you and me, right? Or you and I. I got caught in traffic for 2 hours with no air conditioning. And the bad response is, that reminds me of the time, which I tend to want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
What's a better answer to, I got caught in traffic for 2 hours with no air conditioning?
Boy, you must stink now. I don't know. To have empathy, I think I got to say, wow, so sorry to hear that. And I'm sure you'll find an easy way to get it fixed.
Hmm.
That's a better answer. What would you say, Sue?
Well, you've been in traffic for 2 hours with no air conditioning. Oh man, that sounds horrible. Sounds horrible. What happened? What else happened? Or just stay with it long enough to.
I'm glad I wasn't with you.
Well, at
That's
least
not
it's
the right answer, by the way.
but at least it's their story. But moving into that's nothing is definitely a blocker.
I think I would go with, so wow, those 2 hours that you thought you were going to have, what are you not able to do now that those 2 hours? I mean, how has this upset you so much? What would you have done with those 2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Lisa says, suck it up, Tom.
Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah, suck it up.
Yeah.
So Doc Roth has joined us from Las Vegas. We got Las Vegas in the house, so that's
Hey,
awesome.
David, Doc.
Yeah, he's with us.
Hello,
What
hello.
are your favorites, Sue? What's one? You had a favorite too on here.
I think the one that I fail the most at is the one on Educate. The last one, number 11. And that's the things that my boyfriend left for college in another state. And you come back with, this is a great opportunity for you to learn. But that particular example, but just the term isn't that appropriate for me. But I tend to hand people books.
We don't know anything about that, Steve, do we?
I got quite a library of things to read.
Mm-hmm.
Or, yeah, I would say that too, Sue, if you wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
Your
That's
quick-
my
Yeah.
worst one,
Mhm.
or my favorite, I should say, I suppose.
Mhm.
But it does. What it does for me, though, is keep me from having to get into those emotions. I just want, I don't necessarily want to feel what they're feeling. I think I've felt all those things in the past, in terms of identifying. Oh, well, one of the worst things I learned when I was doing Imago training was that you want to get to validation. You listen until you can feel it. You can empathize to the point, by the empathy, that you can say something like, I can imagine that you really feel a terror because of all that you've told me. I can feel that. And then when you can say that statement, that it makes perfect sense that you would feel that way based on what you've told me, that we use the finger signal of the V, which is for validation. And then empathy is the letter E, or do I have to do it this way for you? I don't know which way this camera is going. So that looks like an E. But if you listen to the story and you feel it and you just have to tell your story, then you are identifying. And that is not actually the finger that you are using on there, because we were doing validation is this one, and it's the other finger that you put down when the finger signal that you're using to that person's story. So identity with just the eye is really saying, this is what I think about your story. Fooey on you. Let me tell you about my story. And that is what I do, because I don't want to go there with them. So I'll either tell my story to give me some relief, or I'll tell somebody else's story and I'll give them a book.
It's so tough when, like with the nail in the head, right? There's an obvious problem. And you mean I have to disregard that really obvious solution and just go along with them for a little bit? Really hard to do. It's against human nature, and certainly against everything that I know for me, I'd want to go right to that nail right away. Why wouldn't you? Right?
And so let's stay with that a minute, because that is such an important distinction about what you can see from the outside and what you have felt in your lifetime. And then you think that you know the answer for them. It's a really tricky thing when these solutions seem so obvious.
I'm looking down here to see.
Doc, tell us give us a solution to how you get off the obvious solution that you're just dying to tell them.
Right.
When what we really know is that they probably know all that already. And there's something that is keeping them from taking an action that we can't see and they don't see either. That's why empathy is powerful, because the answers are rarely outside of our bodies. The answers are known and we can't see them. It's that whole thing about denial in our program. The denial. It's not that any of us don't know what we're doing. What is it that is blocking us from actually taking action?
My nature happens to be as a fixer. You present me with, he moved away. My brain goes to, well, we'll find you somebody else. There are 10,000 guys or gals around that are just waiting to meet you. I'm working on a solution for their problem or concern, and that's certainly a conversation stopper. Because I'm trying to solve the problem instead of having empathy. So many of us are problem solvers that somebody tells us something like that. Oh, well, here's what you ought to do. Or this is what I think about that, as opposed to wow, I'm real sorry to hear that. That must have affected you deeply, you know, or some other kind of statement. So I got to get away from the fixer side of me to have any empathy.
You have to believe that the answer is not in that solution, but in their transformation from inside. And can you make the space that makes them feel respected and accepted and intelligent enough to solve that problem without saying something like, well, you're a smart kid, fix it. You know, there's got to be the words. The words have got to be words that say, I respect you, and you are strong, and you will find these answers inside yourself.
One that speaks to something like this behind the scenes is my favorite is the one I'm really upset. I'm really upset that you're always running late. And the bad answer is the reason I'm late is because, right?
Mm.
And really what I'm upset about is I'm really upset that you're always running late. I feel disrespected. I feel not listened to. I feel like I'm not good enough. I'm not valued. The time isn't valued. You dishonored an agreement we had. And to say the reason is because just heaps on top of it. It doesn't matter that you feel disrespected or upset.
Mm-hmm.
And that's defending ourselves almost. And I'll go there. We all go, I think, quickly to defending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone to say to me, I know it, you know, I don't know what the better answer would be, but there's a way better answer for me in this situation than just the real reason is, yeah, I tried to be on time, you know, doesn't help, right? So hard
Mm-hmm.
to not go there immediately.
Because it really might have been a flat tire, unpredictable, and all of that. But that is not, it's not about the nail.
Right. But you
It's
see, then
really-
I say, well, why didn't you plan time for a flat tire?
Mm-hmm.
I planned time for a flat tire. You see,
Mhm.
there's Tom saying that I have to do, you know, this is how this can go.
Mm-hmm.
You should plan time for a flat tire.
If-
Because
and
the
if-
most important thing is to be on time for
Mhm.
Tom, but not for
Mhm.
Sally or whoever.
Doesn't it feel like a power struggle? And that one in particular.
Mhm.
It really feels like a power struggle to get some kind of need met. And if you can use these opportunities of misusing a blocker to look more clearly into what you're trying to do in this relationship, you're trying to heal each other, grow each other up emotionally, to make people know that they are safe with you. So if that's your goal, then it's a different kind of thing. The story comes and you hold that story for them long enough for them to figure out what's going on with them.
Mm.
But with the defense, it's over being late, and it becomes a power struggle about who's right. Nobody wins that. Nobody ever wins that power struggle, because whoever wins, there's something you just wound more, which makes a more volatile fight the next time. It's like an armament. You know, an arms race is what it is.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to stop and say, I'm going to do empathy, and I'm going to hold your story, and I don't care if you're telling 17 lies about me and what I've always done. I'm just going to hold your story for you. And when you make that stop, the weapons are put down. And-
I want to go to Lisa's comment and question because I think it's very relevant, especially with our audience. But Steve, I know that you're one who, how does it make you feel when you and I have this patience thing, right? That we're working
Called
on.
impatience.
It's called impatience.
Yeah.
But when someone's late for you, this statement would probably fit you, right? You get upset. It's not okay to be late, right?
No, it's not. a
On you.
childhood wound or opportunity for me, whatever you want to say, was that my home was run like a train in Europe. It's on time or else it leaves. And so I have a little work to do in that area where someone's late. It frosts me, to put it pretty nicely. So I have to work on it a little bit to mainly just bite a hole in my tongue and say, good to see you. And stay away from, well, it's about time you got here, or where the hell have you been, or, little things like that have a tendency to appear in my brain. But the safety of my survival is to not say something like that.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what I've done is I realize over time, did their 10 minutes late really do anything? Like
No,
in the
no.
end,
I mean, it's
Right.
just not that important.
right?
And,
In the big picture, right? And then what did we need to get that upset about it?
No, unless it's a plane or a train moving, that I live, have a daughter who likes to take it right up to the last minute to go get in line, and you just stand around. Oh God, I hope she makes it. Hope she makes it. And sometimes she has, and sometimes she does. But there are some circumstances that still kind of wind me up a little bit.
Yeah. What I do in those, and there are some things where we have to wire around. I get that, Steve. I won't travel with somebody like that. I just say, I'm going to go, I'll meet you there. And if you miss the plane, you miss the plane. It's terrible. But sometimes I can't deal with it. So I don't do it. But let's talk a little bit about the question that Lisa had, which is, how do you think that these blockers affect those in active use or in recovery? So I think in recovery, this is what we're talking about here is we talk about 10, 11, and 12. We talk about improving our conscious contact. We talk about commencing a way of living that leads us to success and creating relationships with people and jettisoning selfishness and all. What a path to be taking to help us ensure sobriety and recovered than to be defined as empathetic as opposed to sympathetic. What do you guys think?
Well, I think the fifth step is an opportunity to have and show and learn about empathy, because your job should be to listen, try to not pass out advice, try to offer solutions, try not to, but using some imago skills of mirroring and not jumping up and offering solutions. But a fifth step inventory would be a great place for all of us to focus on to become better listeners.
And then we were saying it certainly works and it's essential when you're doing step 9.
Oh,
Right.
right.
Yeah, because you never know what they're going to come back with if you're trying to make amends, and you've just got to get yourself settled to allow for space and quiet, and just empathy. What I did must have really hurt you, and not. Well, I really didn't do that.
So let's talk a bit. I mean, so those are great examples, and we see of us when we're in recovery. Let's just step back to when we were active. When I was active, every one of these blocker replies would have been my go-to. And we can use our old famous saying, wait, how was that working for us?
But add to that question, Tom, when you were active, every one of those blockers were used on you.
They were. That's true. I used them and they were used on me.
Mm-hmm.
My go-to being selfish and self-centered, my go-to being a survival, go-to to protect my world that had to be the way I wanted it. I would go to the blocking empathy was was low on my priority list.
Mm.
Well, it's a
Is it-
great way to stop conversation you don't want to hear. You know, so
There you
you
go. I don't want to talk about it.
try to bring one of those sticks of dynamite out and blow up the conversation.
Mm.
So we're constantly, at least I am, as you mentioned, back when I was active in drinking, I had a solution for everything. You know, some of my best thinking was done while I was drinking. I mean, wonderful decisions I made. But so I was the mastermind at blocking, creating these blocks in conversation because I didn't want to talk about it.
It really takes someone who can lay their life down, and that is one of the things. Maybe it's in Ephesians, to take on the nature of and to lay your life down, and Jesus laid his life down for us. And then in Ephesians and other places, we are charged with taking on the full nature of. And the life is not throwing yourself over a cliff or jumping in front of a train to lay your life down or taking a bullet. It means in this situation when you're being accused of being late and someone is bringing you some kind of a thing that triggers something in you, that you can feel totally what you're feeling, suspend it in the service of another. That is step 12. That's step 5. That's step 9. It's throughout our entire program. Can you get to the point where you have been forgiven, where you know yourself, where you've done step 10? Every single day you're looking deeper into why you have these reactions, and get to the point where you are emotionally mature enough to suspend your reactions to be in service to another. And it's not an easy thing to do, but if you've never heard of it, you're not going to do it. But if you can name it, you can begin to observe yourself and give yourself an A- instead of a B+.
That's a mic drop. And you know what I have learned to do now is, how would I want to be this to happen to me? Like what would be, and you have to really think, what is the response I want? What would be helpful to me? What did I wish they would say? And because if I can articulate that and say, I really needed them to be aware that I am so upset about this, it makes me aware that when it happens, when it's my turn to face this, wait, let me see, what would I really want to hear in this situation?
Mm.
You know, I don't want to hear my story. I want to hear that and it's this process, right? It's this process that takes an effort. And we try to get our A, right? We get A's sometimes and F's other times.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to pull the nail out all the time.
Or sometimes an incomplete.
Incomplete, right? And there's another another set of principles, guys, that there's also a link to this on our website that Sue has in there, the principles of how we treat each other, right? And these things lead right into empathy. It's kind of like empathy 201 or 301. It's the next step of it and how we treat each other. But this leads to this successful life and all the things that we feel like we want: freedom and happy, joyous, and free, and being connected with people around us and having positive relationships in business and in professionally and personally. To be able to practice all the empathy without any of the blockers, and to be able to treat other people according to this. Boy, what a standard to work towards.
You know, as we discussed this, I think, who was the master empathizer? And I believe that would have been Jesus would qualify as a master in empathy. And he would question people about things, but it was meaningful questioning instead of offering solutions. And he eventually, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be fixed? Do you want to be cured? But he was one of the best.
the best. Yeah.
Mhm.
He jumped right into people's feelings and talked them through and even talked them into that. What do you think the solution is? And they would tell him what their solution is. Yeah, I need to be healed. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a great point, Steve.
Mhm.
Right. Great.
'Cause
Well,
the answers really are in their rear brains somewhere in the unconscious. If no one listens to them long enough for them to listen to pick out the pieces and try to get into a story, the person doesn't even know their own story because it's in a part of their memory, in their mind, in their brain that has been blocked off in order to keep them safe from bad memories.
Mhm.
So this is just a tiny skill. It's just such a tiny part. It's a practical thing. You can give say, I'm going to do this all day. I'm going to try to do it for 1 hour. You can set up your goals and say, let me see how much of this I can do. It's very practical. It doesn't look like it has such profound implications, but it's your toe. You're getting your toe in the water.
D says, when we stop drinking and drugging, I'm going to say, unless we work our 10, 11, 12, we can still be using blockers. So that's so true. Stopping drinking, stopping using drugs is not the answer. That's not what gets us free.
Mm-hmm.
It's the practice of 10, 11, and 12. And part of it, like you said, Sue, one of the tools, one of the things we work on as we are growing is becoming better at being empathetic. It was a great discussion today, guys. I mean, we could talk about this forever. We were terrible at it before, right, Sue? Lisa, Sue, and I were backstage just going around, and we weren't as good at it. And then we started to say, do we really? I said to Sue, I don't know. Do we really know how to do this talk?
Nope.
We can't really do this that well. But so we're being real, guys. We're working at it just like you are. We're all just trying to be better. But that is the point. We recognize that we need to be better at all this. We're not perfect. And so we try every day to be better. I think we can come back and one of these times in the future, Sue, will do principles of how we treat each other because
one of those principles I think applies right here is this turn to wonder. And I think what you were talking about, which we're aware of it, we're going to start observing. And when we fail, the question you want to ask yourself is, I wonder what reason I was not able to suspend my reaction. What does that tell about me? And that usually comes about 7 or 8 minutes later after you've done it wrong. But that's turning to wonder. Just forgive yourself and say, I wonder what's the next thing I need to learn about me.
Right. It's just this process, 10, 11, and 12.
Mm-hmm.
Any last words of wisdom, Steve?
No, I think she's got it.
She's got it.
Mic drop. Well, thanks guys for coming on today. We're all within a couple miles of each other. Steve's over at the office and Sue and I are here at the house. And so we want to wish everybody a great weekend. It's a first weekend in February. If you're up north there with Lisa, stay warm. I'll be back up there tomorrow. Down here in Florida, let's try to stay dry today. And work on your empathy, guys. We got a charge when you're working your 10, 11, and 12. Make empathy something you put into your interactions and relationships today. Next week, we'll see you at the same time, 9 a.m. Eastern. No, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern, and 5 p.m. over in the UK. For Recovery Live, we talk everything recovery and living in the go. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you next week.